Dear Sir or Madam, if you would like to find out how to write the best formal letter or email you possibly could, stay to the end of the video and you'll find out how. So hello, welcome back to English class. In today's lesson we're going to look at how to write a formal letter and email the best possible way using a very simple structure. The first thing you should know about formal letters is that they are transactional. This means that they are to achieve a specific goal. Sometimes you might be asked to write to somebody to correct information. Sometimes you might be asked to write to somebody to apply for a job. So a formal letter should be written in a polite, neutral language without any slang. So some colloquial expressions are a no-no. Also, you should avoid writing contractions and abbreviations. And of course, should follow the conventions of a letter. An appropriate greeting, paragraph and closing. All of this should be done between 220 to 260 words. It's important to keep in mind that you may have different or various recipients, the people who you are writing to. But the main objective for you writing the formal letter or email is you want to cause them to do something as a result of your letter. So now we are going to look at a very simple and easy structure that we can apply when we come to do this part. Number 1, our first port of call is the greeting. This is where we should write something like Dear Sir or Madam, or Dear Mr, Dear Mrs, or Dear Miss, depending on who you are writing to. You could also say to the editor, if it is the editor you're writing to. And if you don't know who you're writing to specifically, you could say to whom it may concern. The second thing we have to do is the opening. This is when you state the reason for writing, possibly with the writer's opinion. So here you could start by saying something like, I am writing with regard to, or in response to your request, I am writing to, or you could write, I would like to draw your attention to, or thank you for the interest you expressed in, and then we start our opening paragraph. The next thing, number 3, is the body. Now the body is where the writer provides information, reasons and examples to support their opinion. So here we could start our first body paragraph by saying something like, firstly, and then our next paragraph would start with something like, secondly, and then if you want to include a third paragraph in the body, you could put finally. Now of course, we'd have to fill our body paragraphs with some connectors, some very useful connectors such as moreover, which means in addition to something, similarly, which is used in comparison for, conversely, which is the opposite, something in contrast, and then you can even back up your point by using something like, this is confirmed by the fact that. Next up, number 4, we have our closing remarks. Now the closing remarks is when the writer presents a summary and restatement of the writer's opinion. This is where you could start your paragraph with something like, to conclude, or to sum up, or even in short, and then after that you could write something like, I hope that, or I strongly believe that. And the last thing to polish off your formal letter or email is signing off. How do we do that? We could write something like yours faithfully, yours sincerely, or yours truly. And then you write a comma, leave a line, and then you write your name. Now that we have our clean, crisp structure, let's look at an example of a task that we might be able to tackle. As a member of the Parent-Teacher Association, you've been asked to write a letter to the head teacher giving your opinion about a proposed change in school policy regarding the use of tablets instead of books. Now, the first thing we have to look for is who are we writing to? We are writing to the head teacher, so we could imagine that the head teacher is a woman. So here we could start by saying something like, Dear Madam, comma, leave a line. After the greeting, now we have the opening. Here we could say something like, in response to your request, I am writing to express my opinion about the proposed plan to replace all textbooks with tablets in the coming school year. And here we could even start the next sentence with a present participle, being chairperson of. Next we have the body. In the body, or the first body paragraph, we could start by saying something like, to begin with, a number of studies have found that, and then you expand on your findings. Yes, of course, you can make them up. You can fabricate your ideas, absolutely. The examiners are not going to go to your house and inquire about what you've said. Absolutely not. So you can make up your statistics. The next thing we can put here is similarly. Now remember, similarly is used when we want to compare something. And in this paragraph, you could also write something like, this is confirmed by the fact that. Now, next body paragraph. Secondly, it is more important to take into consideration our educational goals. So we've made our point there. Make sure you develop your point, because that is what we need to do in this part. We cannot just give our point of view and leave it there. It's much better to take 1 or 2 points and develop those, rather than putting in 4 or 5 points and not developing them. And then you could say something like, moreover, etc., etc. Now remember, moreover is used to include addition. Okay, some other point of view or some other points you want to include in addition. And then the last paragraph in the body, we could put something like, finally, comma, there is the element of enjoyment. Surveys have shown that reading, etc., etc. And then you could put in another statistic if you like. You can include another statistic. Finally, we have closing remarks. We could start our paragraph in relation to this school policy with something like, in conclusion, I hope that we will not lose sight of our educational goals. Yours truly, comma, leave a line, Joe Blogs. Okay guys, so there you have it. A perfect structure essentially of how to write a formal letter. It's very important to keep in mind some of these tips. Always have in mind the reader, who you are writing to. Try to maintain the same tone, whether it be formal or neutral. Try to convince the reader, remember. You want to cause them to do something as a result of your letter. And of course, it's very important to read back through to check if you have the appropriate greeting, paragraphing and closing. And also, you cannot forget to plan. So maybe dedicate 5 to 10 minutes and write some of the things that you're going to include. Now you will also be marked on grammatical structures, so maybe even some inversions, some relative clauses, conditionals will always be a good addition to your formal letter or email. Okay guys, I hope you liked this video with English class. If you did, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel and see you in the next one.